All right, so the topic for this video is Russia, sorry, we'll be focusing on Africa. Now, the title of this video is the US military will be fighting Russia in Africa. Well, they technically already are. So, quick backstory. Wagner, we all know Wagner, or Wagner, they're pretty much done working with Russia. They're all up in Belarus. And the head of Wagner, Mr. Prigozhin, says, we are not going to be fighting in Ukraine anymore. In fact, we're not going to be focusing on Ukraine. We're going to be focusing in Africa, more specifically Mali. Now, there are reports out there that Wagner, I'm going to call them Wagner, all right? Wagner makes about $200 million for their current contract working in just Mali, Africa. That's a lot of money for one PMC, private military company. Now, it's a good business move for Wagner to just totally focus on Africa, especially if they're going to be making 200 million in Mali. That's a good deal. Now, here's what the issue is for the United States. The United States is relatively new to Africa in the sense of they've really only been working in Africa since 2001, since when 9/11 happened. And many people question, well, what's the point of AFRICOM, Africa Command? What's the United States doing in Africa? They are combating, at the time it was Al-Qaeda, and then eventually the evolution into ISIS. And so we have a weird conundrum. And yes, this is really live. Good to see all of you, and leave your comments and opinions down below on the situation. We have a weird conundrum. The US military is trying to fight ISIS. Wagner is also fighting ISIS, and they're both meeting in the middle to where countries are starting to think that Wagner's doing a bad job and the United States is doing a bad job. For example, Mali is, they love Wagner. They kicked out the UN, the peacekeepers. They kicked them all out because Wagner's doing a good job. Now, Wagner is almost under zero jurisdiction working in Africa. It's like the wild, wild west for them. And so they're going to do whatever it takes to kick ISIS out of Mali or any sort of militia groups. And in turn, they're pushing into Niger. And that's where the United States is operating out of, and the surrounding areas. The Sahara, Central Africa. And so, now, what I foresee happening, and a lot of people who follow geopolitics within Africa, is that there's going to be this meeting in the middle throughout Africa where the United States is going to be battling Wagner indirectly, Russia. Now, I say Russia very loosely because theoretically, Wagner's deal right now is they're supposed to be giving a cut of their money to Russia. Interesting enough, Wagner plays this ambassadorship for Russia where they leverage the superpower to go into a country. I'll give you an example. In Sudan, they have a deal where Wagner will work in Sudan and Sudan will pay Wagner. But not only that, you'll get some AK-47s for us in Sudan. And so it's a very interesting and complex thing, their area of operation and how they work together within Russia and being this ambassadorship in Africa. And the United States is caught in the middle, like, hey, we're not here to make money. We're here to have territories in Africa to where we can train your troops to help fight ISIS. And in turn, ISIS won't come attack us over in the United States. But again, it's not working out. And then we also have China in the mix, where China is quite literally just buying their way through Africa. And so again, we have a weird conundrum because China is building a space station or a space agency launch site over in Africa. They're also building ports on the Atlantic side of Africa. So the United States, I foresee, is going to have to really, really focus in Africa. It's always a very secretive thing of how many troops are in Africa. The number is always anywhere from like 300 to maybe 600. And many people question, well, what's the point of being in Africa? Again, the main point is to combat Al-Qaeda back in 2001, and then it transitioned into ISIS. But the other main thing is to watch the flanks of Europe, the southern flanks, and to watch the Atlantic seaboard, where China has found out, hey, we can pay our way into building ports, thus we will have access to the Atlantic, and we can start to put some subs there. I'm doing this live, which is probably a bad idea because I already stutter. Nonetheless, it's a fun little exercise just to, speak. So, yeah. I foresee an issue in Africa coming very soon, considering Wagner is saying we're going all in on Africa. And this is probably 100% all about the money. Wagner could care less about Africa. But the other thing is, people are saying this is a ruse, that Wagner is secretly preparing for some sort of flank or offensive to the north. Now, we're getting into propaganda territory. This could be true or not true. We don't know. But it's leaning more towards Wagner will be focusing in Africa, considering the UN was kicked out of Mali and considering how much money Mali is willing to pay Africa. I think we live in this world where we think African countries are dirt poor, but a lot of these countries have money and a lot of them want to secure their people. And if there's a Russian mercenary group out there who's doing a good job, and Wagner does a good job in Mali, because they don't have any rules. The United States can do a good job in Africa too if they didn't have any rules, but there are rules that the United States abides by, and Wagner doesn't. So, yeah, that's kind of what I see happening. I personally think I don't think they're going to go into the north of Ukraine. I think that's a terrible business move on their end. They have nothing to gain out of that. But there also is evidence that Wagner, they are training Belarus. So who knows if they strike up a deal with Belarus? No one knows. Wagner has just been so elusive that the only public information we truly have is they are 100% in Africa. And the head of Wagner says, we will be combating in Africa. The main areas of operation, I have it right here in my notes, Libya, Mali, Sudan, Central Africa, and Mozambique. And all of those countries the United States has an issue with. Consider the United States is not even in Sudan right now after what happened with this revolution, civil war going on. Libya, Osama bin Laden from Libya. We've always had an issue with Libya. Mali, we're not in Mali right now. And Mozambique, if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know enough to truly know the geopolitical relationship between the United States and Mozambique. And of course, just in general, Central Africa. So it's funny, we're playing like this puzzle piece game of where Wagner is and where the United States is. And China's like, hey, wherever there's an open space, we'll sell you guys some drones. We'll build you guys a university. We'll build you guys some roads. But just let us park here and just let us be in the middle of everything. So yeah, that's what's going on right now. That's essentially the video. Make sure you guys, if you guys are live right now, leave your comments and opinions down below as I end this live stream. And I hope everyone's having a great day. And really, pay attention to Africa. I'm telling you. Africa, I'm generalizing it. It's because really all of Africa is in trouble. But just like North Korea, we only hear about North Korea in weird circumstances of an ICBM or a nuke. You only hear bad things about Africa, and it's a very unfortunate thing. But right now, Africa is going to be the next battle space, in my opinion. Where Wagner is saying we're going to Africa, the United States is already there, and China is here to play too. Again, leave your comments and opinions down below. Thank you for being here, and that's my opinion.